Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Patriots Path Council's second Commissioners Podcast. Again, here tonight we have Archer Jones, our Council Commissioner, Jay DuBois, our Council's Assistant Council Commissioner, and Bob Brady, our VP, our Executive VP for Operations. Tonight we want to talk about an important subject, and so I'll turn it over to Archer.
Great, thanks, Jason. Tonight, the first thing we'd like to talk about is recharter. Recharter began November 1st. All of the units should have received an email from your district executive with instructions on how to complete the recharter process. We would ask that you get your recharters submitted to the council office by December 29th. That's the last day the council will be open prior to the new year. The reason we want them in before December 29th is there's a $100 recharter fee attached to each recharter, and the council will pay that $100 fee as long as your charter is submitted by December 29th. If you have questions on rechartering and how to complete the process, there is a video on the national website. You can go to the national website and type in recharter in the search engine, and it's going to come up with this video that's going to explain all the updates and new features that the online recharter has in it. There is a way to pay online. We would ask you, please do not do that. Please pay at the council service center. It's going to make it much easier to make sure that we have the fees correct and that everything is up to par. For all of our units that had to change their chartered organization partner, you will have to fill out a new unit application along with your recharter, and that can be found on the council website. And you can fill that form out and submit it with your recharter. And again, if you always have any questions, you can always reach out to the council service center or your district executive. So that covers recharter.
The new unit application form can be turned in with the application or the recharter package, but if there's time, it might be preferable for you to get that piece of paper in beforehand, because
Absolutely, we'd like to get it processed in the system so that when the recharter does come up, that you have the new charter partner in there. So if we can get that completed ahead of time, we definitely would like to.
Good stuff. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight about certificates of insurance and the process that needs to happen for a certificate of insurance.
we love talking about exciting things here, don't we, guys?
Cutting edge stuff, insurance.
So certificate of insurance, for those who don't know, that is what you need if you're going to use an outside facility. They're going to ask you if you have insurance coverage. You don't need it for your chartered partner. The chartered partners are covered under the BSA's general liability insurance. And so you don't need a certificate of insurance. Say you meet at St. John's Lutheran Church. You don't need, and that's your chartered partner. You don't need a certificate of insurance for St. John's Lutheran Church. From time to time, we get folks who ask us for it, and we do issue those. But so certificate of insurance is for when you're going outside and you need to make sure that you can show that you have coverage. So right now, the process takes about 2 weeks, as long as we can process it here at the local council. Now, sometimes there's a request to make changes to language, such as list other folks as being covered under the insurance. And that for that process, that has to go to the national office. We can't make those changes here locally. And that process is done on an as needed basis from the national office, because they're doing insurance certificates for all 249 local councils. So what happens is it gets put into a queue based on the date that the certificate of insurance is needed. So what that means is if you have an event on January 3rd, you need to be thinking about your certificate of insurance now, because National is not going to do that certificate of insurance probably till that last week of December, no matter when we turn it in. And we do ask that you give us 2 weeks with any certificate of insurance so that we have time to process it, and we'll let you know if it needs to go to National so that you're aware that it was sent out. But that process needs to happen. And you need to think ahead when you're doing those things in order to make sure that you can get that insurance covered. Now, if you need to fill out the form for certificate of insurance, you can find that on our council website. It can be found on the council's Scouting Safely page. And on that Scouting Safely page, it will also include a bunch of other information that you might need to know. I think there's a Q&A on there for the COIs. It tells you exactly who it needs to go to here at the council office, and the process that you need to follow. Bob, you want to talk about contracts and?
Sure. So, and another issue that comes up more and more frequently now is the request for us to sign indemnification agreements as unit leaders. So essentially that is, when you charter partner, or a meeting place or someplace where we're going to have an event like a YMCA or a local camp, ask us to sign a contract that provides that the Boy Scouts will not only provide insurance coverage if something happens at the event and a Boy Scout person was responsible for the damage, but it would also provide for the Boy Scouts insurance to cover anything that happens there, whether it be an employee of the meeting place, or someone from the outside. Now, the problem with those agreements is we can't sign them. The Boy Scouts for America's insurance, the way we understand it, prevents us from agreeing to indemnify people who are not part of the Boy Scouts for America. So the problem for you as a unit leader is when you ask to sign this, if you try to bind the Boy Scouts to something that the Boy Scouts insurance doesn't cover, unfortunately, you're going to be found to have bound yourself to it. And then you're liable for the incident that happens. You're liable for the damage caused by the employee of the place. And obviously, that's not a position any of us should be in or want to be in. We didn't sign up to be volunteers to put our homes on the line, right? So really the best practice is not signing an indemnification agreement. Now, of course, the reality is some people that we do business with are going to require us to do that, or we can't have the events. So in that case, before you sign anything, talk to your district executive, get them a copy of the document, and they'll pass it along to the right person here at the council who can look at the agreement and can advise whether it's the sort of document that you can sign or suggest some modifications. And typically what we found is in most cases, we can work with those organizations and come to language that is reasonable for both sides and make those events happen. So really it just comes down to knowing this issue is happening before you show up to the event and not just signing something in haste at the last moment that could come back to hurt you if something bad happens during the event. So it's really about preparation and being careful.
And on that note, so one of the things that happened, and this is an outcome of COVID, is a lot of organizations who you might have been meeting with and doing service projects with for years, now have a COVID waiver that makes us responsible for anybody who might get COVID on the day that we're there, whether it be our folks or anybody who happens to be in the building. Again, this is something that's new in as we're in this post-COVID era, but organizations have tried to do it so they can protect themselves. And it's one of those things. That's one that we absolutely, there's no wiggle room on that's language that we're not able to do, because, as most of us know, how can you take liability for that? But unfortunately, people try to make you responsible for that.
So Jay?
Well, to segue with insurance and liabilities, I want to talk a little bit about youth applications that units may be holding on to right now. It's been common practice over a long period of time that after we do our heavy recruiting in September and October, we gather applications and we sit on them because we're going to recharter in a month anyway. So we hold on to these applications. To remind everybody that when you don't submit a youth application in a timely fashion, so that it can be processed. The youth are without insurance. The youth and anybody that accompanies those youth are without insurance. So, if you, bring these, scouts on in your unit through a recruiting process, and they start coming to PAC meetings and they go on your campouts and your hikes, they are uninsured. So, you want to get those applications completed, get them signed, get them into council. It usually takes about 72 hours or less for an application to be processed, at which point they'll get their little registration numbers and they'll be good to go. If you want to talk about scouts or other siblings or children that you might want to recruit to your unit, and you want to bring on an event, or maybe bring them to a cabaret or bring them to a PAC meeting and show them what scouting is all about, that's great. You can do that. However, we ask that it not happen more than twice.
Correct.
And we ask that it doesn't involve an overnight. So that way we can limit the liability and the exposure of the scout. And those are the national guidelines for youth that you're trying to recruit. So again, those applications are important. They're important to council and they're important to your unit to get them in on time and signed properly. Remember that once you submit them, they are prorated for the year. Right now, the approximate cost is less than $20, so around $18, I think, to get those applications submitted and processed. Get them in now, get them in on time, protect your scouts, protect your units. Applications are important.
So, and that's just the youth application. So
Right.
let's talk about adult applications. So if you're sitting on an adult application, that means that adult hasn't had a criminal background check processed on them, which means you're now putting somebody who might have a criminal background in touch with the youth in your unit. And you don't know that, at least with the criminal background check, you know, we can eliminate some of that risk as well. And you talk about the risk, and the risk isn't just to the kid who might break his arm and not be covered under our insurance, but you know, if they decide to go, the family decides to go the route of filing a lawsuit, that lawsuit could be against members of the PAC because they knowingly, or the PAC trooper crew or ship because they willingly didn't turn in applications. You know, it could be the chartered organization. And you know, we talk about these things because we want to protect everyone and we want to make it so you don't have to worry about being a leader in scouting. But that also means that you need to follow the rules because they're set up for a reason. They're set up for and most of the time the reason is to make sure that it keeps us out of.
Well, that's what the whole application process is about, right? It's about protection, and about finding out everything you need to know about somebody. And as a wise scouter once said, protect your scouts and you'll protect your adults.
And you know, you said you might be liable. There's no doubt that you're gonna be liable if you didn't turn in that membership form, because that's textbook negligence. You have the duty as the leader to take that form that was filled out and come down to the council and get that kid be registered. And if you breach that duty and something bad happens, whether it's a kid breaks his arm or we have somebody in a leadership capacity that shouldn't be, you're going to be negligent, you're going to be found liable, and it's going to be you individually, not the Boy Scouts of America. It's an easy fix. Get that stuff down here.
Yep. And as Jay said, we try to get paper applications processed in 72 hours. Online applications happen in the overnight process. So if your unit's using the online process, that happens almost immediately. We do understand that you can't collect your unit dues, and that's a deterrent to some units for using that. But it is a good way to get the applications in. And I think most folks understand that concept that you pay for the registration online, but then you have money that's due to us. Even looking at sports, right? You know, you sign your kid up, you might do it online for softball. I'm going to use softball because it's the one I know best. Sign them up for softball, you pay the league fees over here, but then you still have to buy uniforms and stuff, and that all happens over here. It's the same thing that happens with our program. You know, they're paying national, which is where all that money ends up going, and then they're paying their PAC dues for the local. So
yeah, one last thing I think we should say is that, you know, we're pointing this out because there are protections in place, there's insurance in place. And if we do the right thing, get kids registered, get the certificates of insurance, get our recharters in. Something bad happens, we're gonna be protected. And there should be nothing to worry about in the ordinary course. Bad things happen when you do things the wrong way.
And so, to repeat, the charter process, the application process, the insurance certificate process. And no, it's a lot of paperwork, but it's all necessary.
Hey, so on a more positive note, since all four of us were there, I wanted to touch on the senior patrol leader roundtable.
Yeah, a great night. We had just over 20 SPLs that came to the council office. And, we had our Order of the Arrow Lodge Chief ran the meeting. And RJ did a great job explaining all of the things that we have to offer our units throughout the council. And it was very eye-opening to me, and I think the other adults that were in the room, that the scouts didn't really know a lot of what we have to offer. When we told them that we have ATVs, you could see their eyes light up. And when we told them we have a zip line across the lake at Winnebago and then a high ropes course that they can do, again, their eyes lit up. So it was a great information session. We got some really good feedback from the SPLs as to what they want at their district camporees and their district events. And, we're passing that along to our district leaders to let them know this is what the scouts want. And we plan to do this again in the springtime. And at that one, we're going to rely on our NYLT staff to run that meeting. And hopefully the word will get out there that this was a great night. It was a great networking event. I thought it was really cool. At the end of the night, we had a representative for one of our Sea Scout ships there. And she explained that if any of the Scouts BSA units wanted to work on small boat sailing, kayaking, or canoeing, that they can reach out to the ship and the ship can make that happen for them. And again, I saw SPLs writing down notes, and it was a lot of fun. And I look forward to the one that we're going to have in the springtime. And I hope a lot more SPLs can be there or be on the Zoom call with us to share their ideas and share what they are looking for from us as adult leaders and as council leaders.
One thing to add, Archer, I mean, you touched on with the Sea Scout representative there, call an SPL roundtable, but it's really for all of our youth leaders in Scouts, BSA, Adventuring, and Sea Scouts. And we did have all three colored shirts in the room, and those different organizations can really help each other and learn from each other. I think the Sea Scouts want to go to a Klondike Derby, which you would have thought about that.
That was very surprising,
right? But that it's just the networking and being able to help each other out makes all the difference in the world. That's why adults go to roundtables. So why shouldn't the senior patrol leaders do it too?
I thought the best part of the roundtable was when the Sea Scout boxman explained what her version of summer camp was.
Yes.
For those who don't know, it's called a long cruise in Sea Scouts. And she talked about the 10 places they visited over 7 days. The ship had cruised from here in Linden all the way up to Massachusetts and back. And they stopped about 10 different places along the way. So it was great to hear that. And all of our scouts were all the senior patrol leaders in the room were amazed. They had no idea that even happened. So I joke with the Sea Scout folks that it's the best kept secret we have in the Boy Scouts of America.
And Jason, I think that's one of the best things about the Senior Patrol Leader Roundtable, or we call it whatever we want to call it, Youth Leader Roundtable, is that it puts all the leadership of our youth units together in a room and talk to each other, so they can build some bridges and build some relationships, find out what each other do, where they go, and how they do things. We all tend to do things in a rut in our units, and we need to break out of that rut and explore what there is to do. And the best way to do that is by contacting other youth leaders and see what they do.
And I thought it was great, you mentioned that the Sea Scout ship wants to do the Klondike Derby, and, the question was posed, well, they don't have a sled. I tell you what, you say you need a sled, you'll have plenty of sleds, because there are plenty of units out there that have extra sleds, and we'd be happy to give up our sled for the day, so the Sea Scout folks can come out and enjoy a Klondike Derby with us.
So anybody else have any topics they want to cover before we wrap up?
I do not.
I'm good.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we hope to have another episode come out here soon. Thanks. Talk to everyone soon.